Are you looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football and basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select two or more players, pick more or less on their projections for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the PrizePicks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, PrizePicks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/bluewire and use code BLUEWIRE. That's code BLUEWIRE at prizepicks.com/bluewire for a first deposit match of up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Kirk Your Enthusiasm. Today, I'm joined by Mavs Moneyball staffer and, as of late, we're very prolific writer, Luke Askew. Luke, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm not bad. So, guys, just for full disclosure, I am recording this in my backyard. There may be strange sounds in the background. Luke and I have been trying to connect since Thursday night, but real life kept getting in the way. So I am sitting out back with my two dogs who are currently bathing in the sun and my 6-year-old child who is inside entertaining himself. And all of those things could change at any moment, but that's okay. So if there's some weird audio snafus or if we're all of a sudden joined by a 6-year-old for the podcast, that is why. I want to start off with a little bit of a recap of what we witnessed on draft night. I held a green room kind of right after the draft ended, and most people really wanted to focus on sort of the Jalen Brunson of it all with the Knicks. We briefly talked about Hardy, but nobody in the room knew anything about Hardy, so we didn't nobody wanted to say anything. So why don't you sort of let's recap what happened real quick. I'll let you take the floor.
All right, you want to start with the Jaden Hardy thing or Christian Wood?
Let's do Wood first, just to remind everybody, since that was a draft night deal.
Yeah, so the Christian Wood trade, I mean, we heard about it a few days before the draft, but technically it didn't, go into, or it didn't become official until draft night. But basically, we swapped our 26th pick for Christian Wood. I mean, we lost the emotional support of Boban, but we didn't lose anything else on the court. All end of the bench guys. So basically, It was Christian Wood, 26th pick. Pretty good trade, I think. Getting anyone who can be a starter with basically, I mean, it's basically like we drafted Christian Wood, but into the salary and into his current age that he is right now.
It's a bit of a moonshot, but it's one that I feel oddly, I'm bullish about it up until I'm not, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm like, I kind of feel like it's lower risk, lower reward. I think a lot of people feel like it's high risk, high reward. I kind of think like he's a starting center, should be good with Luka. It might not work out. If it doesn't, he's on an expiring whatever.
Yeah. I mean, the defense is the only thing that I think really worries people, and it's going to be real simple. He's either going to play defense or he's not going to play. Kid will mess around with that sort of stuff for about 20 games, but if he doesn't show a willingness to try, that's what it's going to be. Because and with the Rockets, there was a lot of just flat out giving up. But again, it's the Rockets, so it's how much do you take that? But offensively, ooh, buddy, I am looking forward to that because he seems to be kind of, he's not comparable to Dwight because he has a lot more to his offensive game, but he seems to fill in all the holes of stuff that we wish Dwight would do.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, you're right. And I think on the defensive side of things, if he doesn't, like you said, Kid will give him 20 something games. And if he doesn't show a willingness to defend, they'll trade him. I mean, he's on an expiring deal and he's talented. He won't be hard to trade. So I'm not worried about him bringing any defensive deficiencies into the playoffs, if that makes sense. Because I think
you got 82 games to figure that out.
Right. And offensively, like you said, he brings pretty much everything we've always wanted Dwight Powell to be. He's an actual threat from three. Like Dwight will make one every once in a while, but like you don't have to guard Dwight Powell, and you have to guard Christian Wood. And he's also just longer and more athletic. He's just a better player. It's just an upgrade.
Okay, so we feel pretty good on that one, all things considered. We were very excited about it last week, but I think we've all had a week to process. And I think that people are kind of incorrectly judging the Mavericks draft night by not factoring that in just because we knew a week in advance. But then something else interesting happened. In the second round, they traded into pick number 37, which was owned by the Sacramento Kings, and they selected a guy that I remember hearing about, but only a name recognition. I've known absolutely nothing other than what I've consumed since the day of the draft. Jaden Hardy, who played for G League Ignite this past season. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So go. What do you got? Let's just kind of dive insofar as we can on Hardy, because for everybody's background, Luke is the guy on our staff. I don't want to misspeak here and say you are an expert, but you are easily our biggest prospect enthusiast. I think is it. You're the one that really gets excited about younger players, right? Is that fair?
Yeah, and part of it is just because I'm excited about college basketball. So I will say my like G League knowledge is not to the extent that my college basketball scouting is, because part of why I get excited about the draft isn't only because I'm excited about what their NBA future is going to be like. I'm excited to see people finish up what their college career was. But yeah, no, you're right. And I do love the draft in general. So I do try to dig in with G League prospects as well. But I think so. The Jaden Hardy deal, I think the biggest thing to kind of start with is that if, like you said, people were kind of underrating the Christian Wood trade as a draft night trade, if that trade happened on draft night, I don't think the Mavs would have made another move to get in at pick 37 and get Jaden Hardy. Yeah, I think that would have been just the move of the night. So I actually think the Christian Wood trade needs to be respected on the same level as a draft night trade was in terms of enthusiasm from fans, because I actually think it opened the door for another trade. I think making two big-ish, I mean, getting into the 37th pick isn't big, but it's not nothing, and it's not something we see a lot. So I think the Christian Wood trade happening days before is what really opened that up. But to dive into Jaden Hardy, he's probably as talented of a 37th pick as there's ever been in the NBA draft. I mean, he was the number 2 prospect out of high school on ESPN's 100. Only behind Chet, I think, was the number 1. So he was ahead of Paolo, ahead of Jabari. Now, obviously, that's not to say that he's ahead of Chet or Paolo and Jabari right now, because things transpired over the past year, like a not very good G League season. So it really just gets into how much you want to read into a good G League season versus a bad G League season and what that all means. But the talent is there.
So it's interesting. I had a couple of text conversations with a pair of writers that you love and that I really enjoy hearing about, and J. Kyle Mann and Jonathan Sharks of the Ringer. Now, both of them said up front, you would have to kind of ask the high school guys more, because they kind of do what you do, which is watch a lot of college and watch a lot of basketball that's easily accessible. G League games you got to kind of seek them out. And Hardy had a very inefficient season. He looked very out of sorts. And I asked, how is a guy that's second in the nation that falls all the way to 37? And one of the answers, and I don't remember who said what, it doesn't really matter, but one potential guess was that Hardy was one of these guys that was very developed early in terms of his physical maturity. So, we're thinking like 15, 16, he's just bigger and stronger than a lot of his peers. And then by the time he's 18, 19, a lot of these guys have caught up. And I didn't understand where it's like, how is a number 2 guy, high school guy in the nation, it's like the knocks on him have been, well, he's not super athletic and he's not a playmaker. So it's like, if you're not athletic and you're not a playmaker, then what are you doing to get a number 2 ranking? And I don't want to sound like I'm down on the guy. I'm just like, I'm genuinely curious. And what it says to me is that high school ratings are bullshit, number one. But then number two, it just like the answer seems to be he's a bit of a volume scorer. He is confident as all get out. Like that's probably the thing that over the last couple of days, I've most been able to discern. Now, whether that confidence is earned is not something I'm really willing to comment on yet, but he's going to come in ready to prove himself at the very least, which, he's a clutch guy, first clutch guy the Mavericks have had maybe since Clutch was formed, because Nerlens Noel didn't go with Clutch until after he had already kind of decided he wasn't staying with the Mavericks. It's a very curious thing. I don't really know what to make of him.
I think you're right in the sense that high school rankings are by and large bullshit, because if you look back at the top if you look back at the last 10 years of ESPN top 100 recruits and just look at the top 10, there's usually 3 to 4 guys just in the top 10 that you're kind of like, wow, those guys didn't even like turn into anything.
There was a guy that Clippers got that was kind of like this. I can't remember the guy's name. He's with
BJ
the Clippers.
Boston.
Yes. Who is like he seems like, and I'm wondering, and granted, I don't know enough about BJ Boston either, but I'm wondering if there's like any similarities or hope there, because Boston seems like a guy who could be a steal if he continues to develop in the next 2 to 3 years, because that's really kind of the main thing I would do if I was really invested in this pick as a player. Like Hardy is not ready yet.
No. And no, he's not ready yet. And I think, BJ Boston is a pretty good comparison in terms of their career trajectories thus far, not play style, but BJ Boston I think was 5th maybe for his class.
Yes, he was really high up. That's why I remember the name.
Yeah, went to Kentucky, had a pretty rough year at Kentucky. If I'm remembering correctly, his 3-point shooting percentage was really bad, but his shot looks good. And that's kind of similar to how Jaden Hardy is right now. His 3-point percentage in the G League was horrible. But his shot it's not pure. I mean, it's not Steph Curry, Klay Thompson type shooting form, but it's not broken by any means. It's a clean jumper.
Yep. I've seen some videos too. It looks fine.
Yeah, it's fine. And it's, I think I have a hard time scouting G League prospects because it's how much is each prospect putting into winning at that stage. Like, Jaden Hardy went to the G League as a gap year in between high school and the NBA. It's sort of the LaMelo playing in New Zealand thing, where LaMelo's New Zealand numbers were all god awful and he jacked up horrible threes, and it was really like one of the like weirder prospects to evaluate, because he had nothing to back up his game other than some flashes. And that's kind of how I look at Jaden Hardy too. Not saying that he's on the level of LaMelo, but the guys that, and I'm not trying to cape for college over going to the G League, like do whatever works for you.
No, but it's a comparison point where it's like these guys who go to college, if you go to college and you perform poorly, it's really bad for you. They're like the who's the guy? Is it Ivy? Who's the guy that basically went to Kentucky, didn't play all year, and then was still drafted top 10?
Shaden Sharp, where it's just like Sharp is like this element of mystery, whereas Hardy like did not play well. Like it's okay to say that out loud. But one of the things that I found, another thing that Shark or Man told me was that you got to remember, and they said this on their Upside High podcast, which is like the G League is cutthroat, where you're dealing with guys that are 22 to 28 who are still trying to make the league. So they know how to be pros and they're playing their asses off, versus
that some of the Ignite guys, which were probably in for a bit of a culture shock relative to what they had expected, because we're in kind of a Wild West period, because there's this overtime elite, which is all high school guys playing other high school guys. Then you have some of these G League teams, which have high school guys on them playing against men. And I think we're going to see a lot of variance in what certain potential superstar guys' paths take, because it's really weird. Because like this evident, like Hardy, like I think the solution, or the take that I've kind of formed is that Hardy probably wasn't a lottery pick. Hardy also probably shouldn't have dropped to 37.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, that's what Nico said pretty much too, is he had him, I think they had him 19th on their draft board. And that's, I mean, because when you go to college, there's an institution that wants to win. So you have to set some personal goals aside. Like Duke basketball needs to be a winning team, regardless of who's on it. Whereas G League Ignite is more of a, I mean, they have a thing called the G League Showcase. It's a showcase. It's where you can go showcase your talent. But I don't know how many people actually care up and down whether the G League Ignite team is coming out on top or not of these games. I don't know how many fans are going to their games walking away bummed that the G League Ignite lost. I think they're looking at the individual numbers and the prospects on the team. So it's understandable why a guy like Hardy would go out and have a ton of shooting nights where he was like 6 for 21, 7 for 23, because he's really trying. It's really a draft, an NBA draft audition.
Yep.
And you have to, it's kind of like the combine games almost, where like you have to be a little selfish in some ways and show what you can do. And that's why it's hard to evaluate, because the positives of how he played in the G League are his athleticism doesn't jump off the screen, but he wasn't a step slow or anything like that. He, like you said, he's playing against 22 to 28-year-old guys who are all fighting to be in the league, and he belonged. He belonged physically. He's 6'4". I think he had a 6'9" or 6'10" wingspan.
Big wingspan. That's probably the most appealing trait to me. I love plus wingspan guys after watching some, it's like my favorite Spencer Dinwiddie trait is the fact that his arms are so long that dudes can't block his shot because he just kind of hangs in the air.
Yeah. And that's what I'm hoping. So Hardy's finishing numbers were abominable. Like there's a whole YouTube clip of just all the layups that he missed. And that obviously contributed to a lot of the offensive inefficiencies. But I think with his wingspan, I don't know if there's any actual proof that backs up that like wingspan helps with your layup package, but I think it should, in the sense that his hands are always going to be a little closer to the rim, and like his arms can extend longer. And I think he's not a natural finisher around the rim, but I think that's something that he can work on. And even just the focus of being in an NBA gym all the time and playing in NBA games, a lot of the layups he missed were like open layups that you or I would think we could make. So it's hard.
I'm going to have an adventure at Summer League is what you're telling me. I'm going and seeing this up close. Everyone should just look forward to my overreactions.
Absolutely. Jaden Hardy is going to be one of the more interesting guys at Summer League, because he's going to be pissed off. There's no way he thinks he should have gotten 37th. Like you mentioned earlier, he's a very confident kid. The Mavs also don't have any other like fun Summer League guys yet, or any other high draft picks that'll be lobbying to have the ball in their hands. So the ball is going to be in his hands the entire time. There will be no shortage of Jaden Hardy Summer League film. And he's going to be going up against guys now that were drafted before him. And it'll be interesting to see how he stacks up in that sense. Not that Summer League is by any means reflective experience on actual NBA basketball.
Summer League is a thing where if you're bad and it's your first year, it doesn't matter. If you're bad and it's your second or third year, it absolutely matters. If you're good and it's your first year, it also doesn't matter. But it can really set some fun expectations. Like Dalton Trigg told me that Hardy is currently 15th in Rookie of the Year betting, and I was just like, dude, why? Like, why is he even on the board?
And that's the thing where, like, does Hardy have the talent to be the 15th, like, highest profiled rookie? Yeah, but he's not going to get those minutes. He's not going to get enough minutes to earn anything close to a Rookie of the Year. I mean, the Mavs are still fighting for a championship. They're not going to, I don't think kids are going to be giving Hardy 25, 30 minutes a game to go mess around and see what he can do. But a guy, in terms of summer league experience, I mean, like, Bones Highland was like this last year. He didn't have the high school pedigree, and he didn't fall as far as Jaden Hardy did.
You knew.
But
we
you
were
knew.
in the car, it was 110 degrees. I remember you telling me, you're like, Bones Highland is the dude. And Bones Highland ended up being, I want to say, second team All NBA and mattered to a Denver playoff team.
Yeah, I think I was sitting with Charks actually for one of those games, and I think it was a Bones game, and we were just happened to be sitting in a section where there were a lot of Nuggets fans, a lot of Bones family and friends were there. And the whole time I was there, the only time I ever saw a gym in Vegas get more excited than when Bones Highland was playing was when LeBron walked in the main floor just to watch the Lakers. That the crowd got hyped for that. But Bones had a summer league crowd like going crazy. He had people on their feet. He was showing out. And you knew then that's where summer league is fun, and that's where it matters. You knew right away then, okay, Bones is going to be a guy that matters in the league in some way, shape, or form. He's not going to fizzle out.
That's in the podcast archive, guys. You can go find this because I remember Luke and I having this conversation last summer. Well, so that's kind of the Hardy of it all. Is I think my expectations for summer league are in an interesting spot. I think my expectations for him as a NBA rookie are, if he sees the floor at all, that's going to be interesting, because otherwise I bet he spends a lot of time with the legends running point and running sets is kind of my thought.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely will spend more time in the G League. I think he'll get some run on the actual Dallas Mavericks, but he's not. I mean, I'm ready for a lot of conversations in this next upcoming season about how, like, oh, we got excited about the Jaden Hardy pick and he's averaging like 2 minutes a game. I'm not worried about it yet. We'll see what happens with Jaden Hardy in 3 years. And even then, I'm not worried about it because it doesn't cost anything to get the 37th pick in the draft.
I mean, it does and it doesn't. Like, I agree. Like, Kelly Kaplan tweeted something to the effect of like a 20, I think it's a 2020, 2024 and 2026 maybe, or 2028.
I think it's 2028. Yep.
Which is just like, at that point, you're kind of whatever. I mean, I don't want to dip too much into this because I'm sure we'll be talking about this a ton over the next several weeks, but a lot of fans are like looking at, you shouldn't care about this pick right now while Luke is on the team is all we really have to say. Like, it didn't cost them enough. And if they can always do, one of the things I didn't really love that Nico said was, we're not moving any of our guys for picks. I don't think, like, being that married to your roster, I don't think is smart, but that's kind of a discussion for down the road. So, I wanted to give you a chance because you wrote all of our draft profiles because Jordan and Ian mainly didn't want to commit to doing the work. Tease, love you guys. But who were some of the guys that were, let's just say, like 20 to 40 range that you were really high on that you maybe wish the Mavericks could have found a way to draft given an alternate timeline?
Yeah, so Christian Brown from Kansas is he was my favorite Mavs prospects before the draft. He's still the guy that I wanted them to get he's the guy that I wanted them to get with the 26th pick before they traded it for Christian Wood. Now Brown ended up going 21 to the Nuggets, so which was really good for my well-being.
Yeah, he's not there for them to pass on.
Right. If he would have went like 28th, I think I would have been a little more upset about the Christian Wood trade, knowing that we could have gotten Brown with the 26th pick, but we weren't ever going to trade up from 26 to 21 and yada, yada, yada. It didn't end up mattering. But Brown is the guy that I really wanted After that, kind of 26 picking back, I really like Ty Washington from Kentucky. He's a guy that I think he went 28th or 29th, and he fell a lot further than people were expecting. Kind of around like the February time of year when mock drafts kind of started to tumble out. He was, I mean, a lot of people had him going in the 10 to 14 range. And he ended up falling to one of the last couple picks in the first round. I really like Ty Washington, similar ish to Jaden Hardy, just in the terms of him being a talented guard, a little on the shorter side. I think he's 6'3", but he also has a long wingspan, high upside. Another guy that I wrote about is Caleb Houston, and I think he went 32nd.
He ended up with Houston. He ended up with was it the Magic and Paolo?
Yeah, I think he did end up with the Magic. There was a lot of trades around that area that now I've kind of blurred out in my mind. But
Sure.
Houston is actually similar to Hardy in a sense that Houston was a top 10 guy out of high school too. And he just played 1 year at Michigan. Michigan was disappointing this season. So he didn't really shine as much. But Houston is another top 10 guy from high school that ended up falling to the second round of the draft, similar to Hardy. So I liked Houston. Really the one that had my interest most piqued was Trevor Keels from Duke. And I was interested in it before the rumor, and then the rumor came out that the Mavs were potentially looking into trading into the late first, early second with Trevor Keels as a target if he was still available. So I was kind of waiting around at that beginning of the second round. I was waiting for a notification that said like the Mavericks have traded, into pick 33 and taken Trevor Keels. I still kind of think they would have.
Well, you want to know what I think? This thought has come to me since we're talking. They had intentions of trading into that 37th pick to get Keels. Only Hardy was there.
I think you're right. Yeah,
because
Keels
went, I think 42 to the Knicks, which there's again the Brunson of it all just kind of overhangs with all this, where you're wondering how much the Mavericks are thinking about guards to absorb a little bit if Brunson were to happen to move on. And it's just very interesting that they ended up with Hardy and that they were targeting Keels, who also ended up with the Knicks. So Keels is interesting. It's 42 is not where, I mean, I kind of thought he would have, based on all the stuff I was reading, because after you turned in that profile, and the athletic report came out, we kind of thought like 30 to 35. And it's pretty interesting. I'm going to be curious. I feel bad for the guy going to New York, but
right.
I think gets to pay under Thibs.
there's some like irony, some underlying irony in the fact that a lot of Mavs fans felt the doom and gloom of like, if we draft Keels, that means we're preparing for Brunson to leave. And now the Knicks drafting Keels is funny because does that mean that they're now preparing for Brunson not to come there? I don't know. Right. It's just funny how that didn't flip as much that way, but whatever. Yeah, I think you're 100% right, though. I think they were looking into that 37th spot regardless. They probably had a deal with Sacramento that both teams had kind of come to a semi-agreement on, and then they wanted to wait to see who was there. Keels would have been there, and I think nobody expected Hardy to get there. I mean, like Nico said, Hardy was 19th on their big board, and I think a lot of people expected Hardy to go between the 17 and 30 range. But at that point, you're also working with winning teams who might not want to take a guy who isn't ready yet. So it's I'm actually a little surprised that the Kings, I think is who we traded with at 37, wouldn't have just wanted Hardy because they're a team that could use some high upside talent that isn't going to be ready for a few years. But that's beside the point. I'm happy we got him.
100%, man. It's interesting. I love draft, but it's like when you read enough early on about how maybe this draft might not be it with guys. Like next year's draft seems to be loaded with, there's Victor Wembanyama, who is probably the best overall what do you want to call it, like incoming player since Luka Doncic in terms of pedigree and excitement. Everyone ignore the fact that Luka went fifth. And then there's
third.
Third. Oh, well, third, and then traded back to us at fifth.
Yes,
Brain fart. That's just me sitting out here in the heat. And then like Howard Beck put out this great story, and looks like he did a podcast with Scoot Henderson, who is another like unbelievable basketball player. I love these two dudes just irrationally, the Thompson twins. And it's like, we do this every year where we get like really excited. Like Paolo Banchero is pretty freaking good. Like they're going to have fun down there in Magic. I mean, Chet Holmgren is an interesting, fascinating player. You know, the stuff that Detroit's doing, like the draft is just a lot of fun. So it's, you know, I think it's why it's been frustrating for me as a Mavs fan for years and years and years that the Dallas just didn't put any emphasis on it. And, you know, and really they don't have any opportunity to put any emphasis on it now. I still agree with your earlier take that, like, if you essentially consider that they drafted Christian Wood with the 26th pick, I'm pretty pleased with that. I just like younger players. Like I like going to summer league and watching these guys. That's why, like, I'm selfishly like very delighted that they traded for Hardy, because now it gives us something to watch. Otherwise, we were going to have to get mad about the fact that Josh Green wasn't going to go to summer league. I don't know if he is ever, but it's like, if Josh Green goes to summer league, we're mad that he's at summer league because he should be better than being at summer league. If he doesn't go to summer league, we're going to be mad because he's probably not good enough to skip summer league. like the
which
poor
basically that's pretty much just putting the idea that he wasn't a good draft pick into one thought, because that's the sign that he just wasn't a good pick. If you can't decide whether he should go to summer league or not, and you're going to be mad either way, that means he wasn't a good pick.
Yeah. Well, do you have any other draft related takes you want to get off before I let you go back to your Saturday?
I think I wanted to just I think one thing that you had just said is interesting, because it is fun. Like I don't envy teams like the Magic and Houston, who are sure it is exciting to draft potential guys that could be your franchise, like it was when we got Luka. But I still don't envy those teams. Obviously, I like having the franchise guy, but there is something fun about, even when you're a good team, having young, exciting people come up. Like it was fun to watch the Warriors and know that they had Moses Moody and Kuminga on the bench. And even though they didn't need them in the finals, it's still fun to have those young draft picks coming up. And like, that's what I wish we had a little bit more of. And that's why I'm glad we did end up trading in to get Hardy, because I think it would have there's an element that we would have been missing as a fan base if we had traded the pick for Wood and then not gotten anybody in the draft.
Yes. Yeah, because there's a sense of expectation that was taken away with no longer having that pick, because I would have put a lot of expectation on that 26th pick, whether it's fair or not. But that's where it just this whole team building conversation for what Dallas has done the last several years, it comes into sharp focus, because as we head into free agency, the Mavericks are like, when you get a superstar, you have a narrow path to success that grows more narrow with each year, because the superstar can, in theory, get sick of it and demand a trade. That's neither here nor there for this discussion, but it's just like, I don't like free agency drives me crazy. It is not fun. It is all frustration. Draft is outward projection and hope and unrealistic stuff, but that's ultimately harmless. And it's like,
right.
Okay, that's why like this conversation, I've enjoyed having it, because it's like, Hardy might not be a player. That's okay. Yeah. But right now we can talk about Hardy might be a player, as opposed to having to project forward to looking at, could we get Mo Bamba as a restricted free? And it's like, we've seen Mo Bamba. Mo Bamba might be okay one day. It's not right now. But, with these draft guys, anything is possible.
And that's where, like, it gives you something as a fan to be excited about and to pay attention to, that isn't just, especially for the teams that are competing for a title, that isn't just, okay, from now until the end of next season, I will just be hoping that the Mavs win a title, and I will be, but it gives you an extra element of something to watch and cheer for. Not how does everything impact their chances of winning a title right now. You can think all of that and then still be like, hey, how's Jaden Hardy doing with the Legends?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's fun.
This is great. I think if so the Mavericks play a weird summer league schedule. So they play like Friday at 3, then they don't play until Monday night, and then they play Tuesday night, and then they play on a Thursday. Like, it's a very frustrating schedule for me personally, because I kind of made the gamble to buy some tickets to go out and watch. And honestly, Luke, this is the truth. They still don't have media credential stuff. So like, I'm probably going to be buying tickets at this point, which that is what it is. But it's like, I wanted to go out there and watch some basketball, and I'll still get to watch some basketball. I just wanted to watch a little bit more Maverick basketball live. So maybe maybe we get together after a couple of those games to overreact to Jaden Hardy.
Yeah, I'll still be watching them on TV, and I'll probably gamble on them online just to fill that void in my heart from not being in Vegas. So,
Well,
there you go.
This has been great. Everybody come to MavsMoneyball.com. Check out Luke's work and the rest of the stuff that we have up. We've had a shocking amount of things for the kind of little transactionally that's actually happened. Our guy, CBA Mavs, kind of wrote the closest thing he could to a Kirk Screed talking about why he thinks the Mavericks need to re-sign Jalen Brunson at all costs, which has prompted like again, because we're at the very end of the show, I have no problem talking about it now. Like the lack of understanding about what can and can't happen with Jalen Brunson at this point is now in the land of willful ignorance of Mavs fans, where it's just like, oh, it'll be fine, we'll go get someone else. And it's like, guys, that not how it works. It's just not how this works. Like, if you don't want him because you think the Mavericks might be like Seth Partnow, my friend, said that he thinks like signing Jalen Brunson might be locking them into too tight a course. That's an interesting angle to me. But like, replacing because it's like, oh, we'll just go get somebody. Like, guys, we can't. Like, signing trades are very difficult when you're this close to the tax. Anyways, it is what it is. Check back a little later. I may do a Spotify Green Room at some point. Who knows? We'll see. Luke is playing right now, but it's very hard to find a stream, and I wasn't able to. So, all right, guys. Kirk Henderson and Luke Askew. We'll talk to you a little later. Have a great weekend.